let's talk about the film Black Sheep. And it may not be the Black Sheep movie you're thinking about. It's not the one with Chris Farley and David Spade. Though there is a new 4K UHD release out of that movie. I haven't gotten it yet, but I do have the previous vehicle, Tommy Boy, which is a lot better than the Black Sheep film with Chris Farley in it. I did a review of this 4K UHD release, and you can check that out on this channel. But today we are going to talk about the 2006 Black Sheep from New Zealand. This is a horror comedy about killer sheep that has tons of practical special effects, a sharp satirical edge, and buckets of blood. Let's dig into this new 4K UHD release from Umbrella Entertainment. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. Umbrella Entertainment is an Australian distribution company, and they put out some fairly impressive releases, especially with their physical packaging. Now, Australia, as you probably already know, is not New Zealand, but New Zealand is an island off the coast of Australia, a pretty big-ass island where they shot Lord of the Rings and all that stuff like that. And this was shot after they did the first Lord of the Rings trilogy, and some of the people who were involved with that project, especially the special effects people, were able to work on this Black Sheep film. So they were able to get some pretty impressive, badass special effects, practical special effects for this film, probably a lot less than they would have otherwise. And this film, it has a fairly small or modest budget. It looks like it has a lot larger budget than it would have otherwise. Now, the film is brisk. It is about an hour and 26 minutes long, which is probably enough time for this film. It could have used a little bit more, but this film it does balance the silliness with it is quirky, but it does kind of balance it in a way that it's not completely Looney Tunes. Like it is kind of like watching a cartoon, but not quite. Now, the film is about a farm. There's a farm with a bunch of sheeps on it, and there's two brothers at the beginning of it. The one brother one of the brothers is kind of, the older brother's an asshole, and he pulls a prank on the younger brother. He actually kills a sheep and then wears it as a costume and comes after him, and it scares the little brother of sheep from there on out. And their dad dies on the same day. So the little brother, who in present day time they're both adults now, and there's some drama going on at the farm. So the protagonist Henry, the younger brother, has come back to the farm where his older brother Angus is going to buy his share out. But while he's there, kind of things start to hit the fan. But before that happens, the older brother's been doing genetic experiments on the animals in order because he knows the farm isn't gonna work over time, so he wants to come up with something better. But he's been doing some crazy genetic experiments. He's got scientists in this building, and they've been doing some wacky stuff. Meanwhile, a couple of activists, animal rights activists, or maybe climate change activists, two of them, a young woman and her kind of an older boyfriend, but she kind of wants to break up with him. She actually has dialogue in there that maybe it's not working out between them, but they break in there to kind of, they're trying to do their activist thing, and they accidentally unleash some of this genetic experimentation onto the farm, which causes the sheep to become... At first, it seems like this might be a zombie movie, but this is a combination between maybe a little bit zombie movie, especially with the format, but it is more of a mad scientist film and a werewolf film. But it's really not. It's not a werewolf. It's like were-sheep, because they get bit and then they kind of become rabid or animalistic. But when the people get bit, they turn into sheep, like a were-sheep, and they, over the course of the film, and they're also, on top of being turning into sheep, they also want to eat raw meat, and so it does have that zombie flavor to it as well, because when the sheep will, even the people as sheep will, they're like cannibals all of a sudden, and they start to eat everything, all meat. The characters are all a lot of fun, and the way that they progress throughout the film. One of the woman of the climate activist, her character's name's Experience. She is quite engaging. I really think that she does some really awesome facial expressions and pretty hilarious amount of dialogue. A lot of it is kind of ridiculous, almost kind kind of farcical, kind of making fun of her point of view a little bit. But though it turns out they do have a little bit of a point, because they were doing the genetic experiments that end up harming everybody. But at the same time, those experiments wouldn't have gotten out had they not interfered with with everything that was going on. So it's kind of a bit of an irony that them trying to save the planet actually puts the planet in danger. But I do like her character, and as the film grows, her character grows and starts to see a different kind of point of view, as does the Nathan character. Starts to become more of a more leaning towards her point of view in some instances, but he also becomes able to tackle his fear of sheep. But I'm not going to go into a lot of the plot, but I will say that there is like an awesome mix of practical special effects, but there's also live sheep in here, and apparently the sheep are pretty easy to work with. So a lot of times you'll be watching it and you'll be like, wow, that's some pretty cool special effects. But no, it's not. It's like a real sheep acting. They got like trained sheep that do a pretty awesome job in some of the scenes. There's one scene in particular that I think is hilarious. There's like this sequence where they're pretty close to the beginning, maybe like 20 or 30 minutes into it, where they're battling one of these sheep that's become infected, and it's trying to attack them on a truck while it's moving, and they all three of them get into the back of the truck, and suddenly they're like, who's driving? And it turns to a shot of the sheep, and the sheep is actually driving the truck. It's probably a puppet sheep at that point, but then the sheep ends up driving it over a cliff. Everybody jumps off real quick. But that's one of my favorite scenes of the film. But that was pretty awesome. But there is a lot of really awesome scenes in this film, and I think especially if you like another New Zealand film like Dead Alive or Bad Taste, like that type of special effects, there's some pretty awesome, gruesome special effects in this scene, and is often very somewhat un-PC, somewhat not politically correct, or very gory in some instances. As a matter of fact, on the cover of this one, this is like in Australia, they have like at the bottom, they have to tell you this is MA, but they say it's got strong horror, violence, blood, and gore, which is a little bit of a spoiler. You put that on the front of the movie, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but I approve of all of that. That's great. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, before we do that, I do want to say, if you go directly to the Umbrella website, I didn't get the biggest, baddest package of this, but there is a badass package that comes with a t-shirt, and here's what it looks like. Boom! Now, it's got a 100+ page booklet that has behind the scenes material, new essays, and interviews. And see that t-shirt right there? That's pretty cool. It's from Hollow Bones. Now, it's got a custom designed bloody woolly outer rigid slipcase. And there's another here, it's a custom designed slipcase, which I have here. And there's 8 art cards, and there's a reversible poster. And think about these releases. Now, I didn't get it for this one, but I did order. I went online and I've got some new ones coming. I ordered 3 of the higher, not the best of the best, but they have like a kind of middle one that has a very rigid slipbox cover for a few movies I'm getting in the near future, which I'll show off once I get them. But I did do a review of another one of their films called Hard Drive, and you can check that out on this channel as well. But let's go ahead and open this thing up. Now, I do want to say about the bottom of these, like a lot of times it will be like a slip cover. So if you look at this Tommy Boy slip cover, it goes the top and bottom out. But this one actually has a solid bottom, what makes it a little bit more impressive. Okay, so there's that. I kept the plastic on it just to kind of save some dust. And on the inside we have this cover. This is the new artwork here, and this one looks pretty cool as well. Now this is a reversible on the back, but the reverse is probably going to look the same. It's the same with the exception of it doesn't have the rating blurb down here. This one, so this is the way you probably want to have it. On the inside, we have 2 discs. We have a 4K and we have a Blu-ray, which is cool. But I did look at both transfers, and they look very similar. It's kind of hard to tell the difference. There is definitely an uptick in that 4K release. But I will say this movie looks stunning in 4K, even in that Blu-ray, which looks like it has the same transfer. And there's a lot of exterior day scenes that are in this New Zealand, like you see these New Zealand landscape, and it looks amazing, especially in 4K. It just really, those greens and all that just kind of pop out. With the exception of the first maybe 5 to 10 minutes, they intentionally put a color grading over it to make it look like it's a little maybe it's a little bit of an orangish type of color grading because that's earlier before. It almost looks like sunset over that first part. But once you get into the present day stuff, it looks so great. And the clarity and the sharpness in general, unless it's a shot that was slightly soft focus, but there's not that many of those. If there is, it was intentional. But this, and then eventually, if you go into the movie further, it gets to dark. In the last half an hour of this is nighttime. And the darker areas, those blacks look very deep. And really, even this has HDR grading on the 4K release, and those skin tones look very fleshed out. They look very fleshy, but it does make the darker areas more the contrast of the darker areas with the lighter areas. There's definitely a more contrast, and it just looks friggin' great. And even the practical special effects. Now we know that the practical special effects, I prefer that over some CGI. There's very little CGI in this film, and when there is CGI, it's for, like, it's not like to have a sheep come after you or something. It's just because they had to do something to fix something that happened during production. Like a guy moving his head like this and starting to morph. They had to kind of just do a little CGI for stuff like that, but it's not hardly noticeable. And there's not, like, for some reason when I watched this originally, like, I was thinking that there was more CGI in it. Like, I thought the sheeps were CGI, but the sheeps are practical, and then there's a lot of, like, humans that turn into sheep. So all of those are like suits, and they look killer. And as far as, if you may not like the silliness of it because it is about killer sheeps, but it does in some instances take itself serious a little bit. But for the most part, it is. It's light, it's a little comedy, and it gets a little dark in some places. It definitely gets a little gory. So you have to have a tolerance for that sort of awesomeness. Now, I do want to read a little bit from the back of this. For the special features, there is an audio commentary with the director, Jonathan King, and actor Nathan Meister. I think that's how you pronounce his name. There's also another audio commentary with a couple of critics, and there is an interview, like a video interview with the director, Jonathan King, and I did check that one out. And there's several other interviews on here, and there's a Jonathan King interviewed by the Bizarro Project in 2007, and there's a Making a Black Sheep featurette. There's 5 deleted scenes, and then there's it says unique transformation makeup test, and there's a blooper reel, and there's cast and crew interviews. And there's some B-roll, and it's a pretty good bit of special features on here. For that alone, it's worth getting this physical release probably. But these tend to be kind of high. If you want the slipcover release, you're probably looking at paying around $40 for this. Now there's probably a standard edition that's going to be a little less. It's just going to have this inside disc here. Now the aspect ratio of this is 2:35:1, which is 16:9 widescreen. There is the soundtrack. It says 5.1 and 2.0 DTS HD MA English, and subtitles in English, or subtitles. And I always put the subtitles on. Now, I've said this before. I don't have a great sound system. It wouldn't go over well in my house. It would probably wake everybody up while they're trying to sleep. And so I usually just watch it with the mono audio coming through the TV with the subtitles on. And it sounded great to me, though it might not sound that great to you, but I thought it was great, and I could hear everything that was being said because I had those subtitles on. Now, in the interview with the director, which I believe it was shot in 2004 with Jonathan King, he does mention the possibility of doing a sequel. He's still entertaining it, and if you look around online, it looks like there has been a sequel announced. I'm not sure if it's really going to happen or not, but I'd watch it. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Hopefully they get it done. But anyway, let's go ahead, and I'm going to rate this movie. And I'm going to rate the release. I'm going to rate it on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. I'm going to give Black Sheep a 4-star rating. I saw this when it first came out, and I thought it was pretty good. But upon revisiting it, I'm like even more impressed with it. And it really more like the humor here and the special effects. And I think it all is. This is a very underrated film, and I highly recommend checking it out. Now, as far as this release, Umbrella, I'm going to also give them a 4-star rating. They do awesome work. This is a great transfer, the most important thing, and all the slip is great. I would like to have that out outer rigid slip box for this. That would make it even sweeter, but I didn't spring for it on Black Sheep, but I did own a few that are coming out in the near future. But let me know what you think about this release, and if you have any Umbrella releases yourself. And if you want to check out something else, check out this hardware right here. You click on this box right here. It's going to bring you to where I I reviewed hardware. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. Thanks for watching.